Okay, so I recorded this ages ago and I only just found out I lost the audio. In fact, I'd forgotten that the video even existed, so... Okay, now this is my Space Marine armor, at least the chest plate. Now, this one I made because this one, which is the best dome I've ever made, just doesn't look right, so I abandoned it and made this one. Now, the new one was made by looking at other Space Marine cosplayers and deciding, right, I like that sign, I like that sign, looked at the basic shapes of it, and then replicated what they'd done on paper, then just generally glued it together, and, well, I masking taped it all together just to make sure it would actually work, and to cut it out so it actually makes the shape. Now, on top of the shoulders, I've attached two sections, which are so the attachment points can hold on without any chance of damaging it. Now, I've seen on previous people that it's torn through the shoulders, so that's one of the main reasons why I added that whole back section. The front, of course, was cut with a set of curves, which make it the big, like, roundish dome shape. Now, onto the back, this back section, it literally, I cut the bit that's on the back of it out, and then made little sections that rise it off, and it's completely hollow on the inside, as I'm shown there. And yeah, I don't know how I talked about being hollow for so long, but yeah. Okay, other side again. This shape is pretty much what the back of a Marine looks like, or at least the models, before you stick the backpack on, and it's generally as a hard mounting point. Now, the points on the shoulders are literally mounting points. They're quite heavy duty because I've seen them being torn through several times, and I don't want that to happen. To be fair, I'm recording this over a year after I built it. I've redesigned the shoulders completely from this anyway, but I don't have videos for that, so yeah. Okay, around the waist, I cut into the line that I wanted, and generally that bottom section's actually just a straight piece dropping down. And that is my vastly improved Marine arm chest. Okay, I did forget about it. Right. Inside the shoulders, just to add a little section coming out, I've cut little sections and literally just stuck it together so it fits. The entire thing's going to be hidden. It's not remotely necessary and I could just take it off, but it doesn't matter. But Marine chest, yay! And it's coming together pretty well. I mean, better than I was expecting at this point. Last time I did the chest section, and then I started off on the shoulder. This is the first one of the two. Now, this one has widened out quite a lot because it's not finished yet, but it's the basic outside shell of it. To make that, I made two long strips. Each of these is 10 centimeters. This one is double the length of a mat, and this one is just under. Doing it, I just stuck one on that side, then wrapped it round until I had about the size of shoulder I wanted, which ends up about that size in the end. But the next section I'm going to have to do, I'm going to be making a shoulder template that goes onto my shoulder, and then make that out of EVA foam, and that is going to sit inside the shoulder like that, and then hopefully that template will hold it in place and stick to the outside of this to hold it in shape, and then it will move in that manner with my arm, hopefully. As far as the rest of it goes, I did this with one 10 centimeter strip going around the bottom just to add up the extra height because it's further down than it is outwards.
So just to make up the extra down bit, I made a 10 centimeter. I used a second one of these strips going across. Then I cut this bit here, which is the same both sides, but I put it around the middle, and then gave it a curve. Again, the curves are done just by cutting one end with a slight curve to it. Then when you stick them together, they'll bow outwards or inwards. If it bows inwards, just push it outwards and it comes out. And then a little 90-degree cut there on the corner, and run that one around. I then did one over the top and then one over the bottom. And this little section here at the end, which is just because a full mat's length doesn't actually reach around like that. So I always need to add a little bit on the end. I mean, I had to over here as well. I've now built both of the shoulders. This one is still has a little bit left on it, but this one is almost fully done, apart from where the arms go in, but I haven't built the arms yet to be able to measure that. So what I've done is I stuck this onto the shoulder pad, or onto the thickening point on the shoulder of the armour, and then inside I pretty much abandoned the under shoulder because my shoulder is actually going to be within the armour itself, and this is going to be guided by my arms. And this little caster runs inside a track here, where I've built a layer on the inside, which the arm's going to be resting on, hopefully. And then I've got this little bit on the outside to stop it falling off, and that stops the arm moving around too much, and doesn't entirely free it up for motion yet, but it runs on the caster like that. The second one I haven't done yet because it's not there. I'm still deciding with these because I'm going to have to probably cut a little bit of that off to make it move smoothly. But again, you just learn all that through modifications. But this is how far I am. Okay. So again, the second one is literally just build the outside. Put this bit across just to keep the distance constant. Inside there is completely hollow. There is nothing. And it's the same inside the other one. It's just the little gap setters, and then all of this. I've also filled in the little gaps by here, and that's just to hold the shoulder in shape, so it actually looks like a shoulder pad permanently. And that's pretty much it for the shoulders. Next up, I'm building the arms, and these are just going to be giant cylinders at this point. I don't know how wide they're going to be. I'm going to have to take a guess to see what scales well with this thing. So again, that's just going to cut a giant rectangle to the size I need. I'm going to cut 3 rectangles, cuts them to 45 degrees, I believe, so they meet up in the middle. And then hopefully I'll be able to move my arm like that. I hope. Right. Okay. I'm doing this bit just before I start the stream, just for convenience sake. Last time I got pretty much the entire body ready, including the arms, the legs are done, and by here. Now, as far as the basic detail or the basic shaping goes, I'm done, but now I've got to start adding detailing and making it look more than just flat surfaces, and start filling in gaps and making sure that everything's sealed properly. Now, the foot I've already discussed several hundred times, but basically make sure that this bit here fits around properly. Leave that little gap because that allows it to hinge and walk properly. I'm going to add a little bit of a lip around the front just to make it look like it has a proper sole. Stick this little lip on properly because I haven't really bothered at this point. And then as far as the boot goes, that's it, apart from filling that in more towards the end. And of course down the sides and, you know, stuff like that. Just the common sense things. Then after that I'm going on to the leg set, or the shin section, which is this. I'm going to go around the edge with... Okay. I'm going to go around the edge... I'm going to go around the edges with these bits, which were the flat edges for the zigzags, or for the puzzle pieces. And I'm just going to stick them on like that, but take all of the teeth off, apart from the occasional one where I'm going to cut a little spike into it, just to make the armour look more intimidating. Because, you know, it's Warhammer, I'm supposed to be intimidating. Then, up here, I'm going to add a knee pad coming up, which I'm going to have to measure, so I'm going to have to put it all on, step in the stilts, and actually measure the gap between the thigh guard and the shin. And then just put it up so it stops just before the thigh guard, so it should look okay, hopefully. But this bit never really moves, it's just resting on the shoe. The thigh guard, on the other hand, this is going to be attached into the waist plate, and I'm going to be doing that with strapping, which I'm just going to stick in with pins for now, and then glue it on later once it's all painted. But just for test purposes, I'm going to be pinning, so... But around here, I'm going to add spikes and a band around the edge of this as well, just to add extra nonsense. Then, okay, then once I've done all that, I'm going to put on the, or I'm going to put the relevant gods' icons and symbology around the legs. Now, I'm going to be doing this hopefully with loads of filigree, so it's going to look ridiculous, take ages to paint, but it should look like I bloody well have put some effort into it. Sorry. It should look like I've put some effort into it after that, and I may have some spikes coming up here and blend the knee pad, which is going to be out a little bit further, into the actual thing, into the actual body as well, with some spikes going up into it. Hopefully this is going to look cool and very spiky. Right. By this point, you should be aware of what I'm doing is just cutting foam and sticking it on. Yesterday I made these spikes around the edge. These spikes are just the edging strips, like these. Like, you know, the little bits with the jigsaw on it around the edge. It's just them, because they're all the same thickness. And then I just cut the jigsaw teeth into spikes. So they go all the way around the edge, around the back, and up the top here as well. This here is just a triangular, or two triangular pieces, which I cut 45 degrees off the edge of. I did that with a pair of scissors. If you look up closely, this doesn't actually look that good because they're big flat on the edges. I'm going to have to correct all that later. And this is just a giant icon of excess that I cut out of a sheet of EVA foam and then stuck on. While I was sticking it down with tape and heating it up with the hot air gun as well, just to make sure that it actually, you know, fitted and like went on. There's still a little bit to do around the edges where it's not stuck down properly, but it's what I've done really. Now, these are just spikes of EVA foam. Now that's one leg. This one, I've gone around the same way around the edges and done the same two spikes and the little ones down the bottom. But the Chaos Star here, I got a large sheet, put the straight edge on it and cut at 45 degrees, then flipped it over so I was on the top of the slanted edge, and then cut 45 degrees again, and did that repeatedly so I get triangular pieces, and then stuck the triangular pieces on. And then, yeah, mark it up in chalk, then stick the triangular pieces along the lines of the chalk, so you end up like that. I don't know how delicate this is going to be, and still requires a little bit of sticking in places, but it doesn't look that bad. Then, okay, right. After that, I started working on the chest. To be fair, I did the legs as well, which Literally just spike stripped around the edge. That's it, on both of the upper thighs. And this is the waist plate. I cut this. Okay, this is the waist. I cut a little bit in around there just because it was grinding between my legs, and I would not want to walk around with that long term because it would be damn well uncomfortable. So I just put more spiking strip around the edges. Then the belt that I've got on there is just those little strips with all of the teeth cut off entirely and then wrapped around, and they're just joined end to end until it makes the full circuit. And then a little box on the front which is made out of the same stuff, the same height, and then that's just pulled out a little bit. Then that's just a little bit over the top, and this is just a sheet of foam that runs around the thing just to make it a belt. I've still got some little bits to fill around this, but that's going to be being done later anyway. Okay, now for the chest, this section I put a centre one up to the height, then added one around the side and cut the shape of it. And I did the same on the other side. As you can see, it's not centred. That's because I guessed. That happens. It does matter, but I can live with it. Then I've gone and built a second one on the inside, which is out of one solid sheet because it sticks straight down. Then I just built up on the layers with EVA foam, which is this section here. And that's pretty much as far as I've got. I've removed a few centimetres from here because it was interfering with the belt and it wouldn't rest on my shoulders anymore. And my initial shoulder designs were, I tried it all on, and it was a few centimetres too long. It was about there on my arm, and I needed to move it just above my elbow because that's where the shoulder plate needs to be for me to move my arms. So I cut them back so they should be ending about here instead of down there. Okay, all of these things are just embellishments and modifications that you will need to make when making armour, just because you don't know if it's going to fit perfectly first time. Even if you use a computer to give you the even if you use CAD software to do it, it's never going to fit perfectly, even if you take the exact game model. I mean, games rely on clipping, and that means one thing passes through another, and they just do that and nobody really notices. But if you try to walk in something that's exactly made as is in a game, you'll just try to move and it'll just lock up because you can't pass where your leg plate through your chest, and you can't put your shoulder pads. That's why in power armor you can't lift your arms higher than that. And I mean, that's a challenge. I mean, my Brotherhood, I could just about manage that, and that's where I hit that's where I hit the shoulder pads. The first one I did, it was just like, can't move past this. So yeah, that's also the reason why you can't remove your helmet, because you can't just make that motion, because your shoulder pad starts there. So you can just about manage that to get a helmet off, and the chest's like out here, so you're just like, come on. Okay, that was ridiculously embarrassing, but that's how it is.